Well,
You cut the music early.
did I?
Yeah.
What do you mean cut it early? I waited till it was through playing.
Well, I don't know. Wasn't playing out my end. Cut the music early.
Well, hang on. Here we go. Hang on.
No, 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 no. You don't have to do that.
I can play it again. Oh. How are y'all, everybody? Let's see who all we got here. Yeah, you better get up on top. I can't. I had to look up. All right. Mark, Jim, Victor. Mark again, up north. Chuck Forbes, hello from Florida. Brian, how are you there, Brian? Good to see you, sir. Cole Woodworks.
Perimeter alert. Driveway.
Hmm, somebody's here.
Sounds
Uh,
like it.
yeah. Uh,
Perimeter alert. Delivery box.
okay. Uh, where was I at? Soaking in Rays, Vester Whitmore. I think that's Brandy coming back. She went to the store. Steve Ferguson, Pepper Lapine, Josh Jarvis, Jack in the Shop. How are you, sir? Nipa, Sharon. Oh, there's a whole bunch of people. Mr. Larry Broom. Hello, sir. And Greg Wilson, nature photography. See, Greg would like it over here. I got plenty of nature. Uh, DJS. Hello from Pittsburgh. And Stephen Holcomb from Kansas. Cool. No, Mark, you're not gonna sneak up on me very much. I've spent a career of making people not like me, so I like to know when they're coming.
That's a good way to put it.
Well, I mean, there's been more than one occasion that people have not been happy with the services that they received. Oh, so you never know. But yeah, it's brandy though.
You know, working in IT, a lot of times we do a lot of pissing off of people as well.
I don't think it's the same, Steve.
Probably not, but
I
they
really
sure
don't.
think so.
I don't think it's the same thing.
You ask some of our users, they probably think it's the same, but no, it's not. So, hey, you know what'd be great is if that fan turned off on that thing. I hear that's a
Well, they're talking about that in the next version.
uh-huh.
Uh,
Yep.
I'm just knocking out some. I got a whole pile of these things I got to do, and I
Very
realized I
nice.
had some scrap material that fits them nicely.
Cool.
See, I just so happen to have a bunch of little offcuts right here.
It's good to use them up.
Whew.
Of course, after a while, you start wondering how much of a wood hoarder you are when you've got, little 3-inch by 6-inch pieces, and you're like, I can make something out of that.
All right, so I have 5 of those, so I can just go ahead and hit the start button again. So, yeah, it's been a busy day, guys. I thought maybe I'd be through with all this stuff by now, but it ain't happening. And then I got called today too. Apparently, I'm going to have like 15 full size baseball bats that I've got to engrave this coming up week that are on a deadline. So, baseball season's been really good to me this year
Huh?
so far. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, those little
well,
bases that I made the other day, they posted pictures of those on Facebook, and the page just started blowing up with people going, "Hey, how much are those? Hey, how much are those?"
no, I mean that's
So,
like we tell people, you get a couple of good things out there, and you never know what's going to hit, and all of a sudden you get more requests for them. So
hello
good
there,
problem to
Patrick.
have as long as you priced it right.
Yeah, I mean, I ain't making a killing off of them, but I mean, I
Well,
ain't hurting myself.
right. That's the thing. Is that I mean, as long as you're not giving it away.
Yeah, because the it takes like 5 minutes on the CNC. I take a 2 foot by 4 foot sheet of half inch birch, and it takes like 5 minutes with that Genie compression bit to rip those things out and cut the bases out. And then I take an old piece. I got some old 1/8 inch Luan down here that I don't use for nothing else. Take a piece of it, put it in the enclosure, tape it to the honeycomb so it can't move, and then I just do the outline, burn it into the Luan, and then I just line them up, go, line them up, go. And each one of them takes probably about an hour because I've got it running real high LPI to get good definition, and it's a lot of stuff on that engrave. And but they're turned out good. And like I said, material cost is the biggest thing because the 1/2 inch birch isn't cheap, but I just didn't feel like 1/4 inch Luan was going to be sufficient for that, so I went with 1/2 inch.
Yeah. Well, for things like that, you want it to be appropriate quality, and then the price of them should reflect the cost of materials. So,
Well, the first person that wanted one sent me a picture from Etsy, and in that picture, it was a piece of 1/2 inch birch. So I'm like, yeah, I got some of that plywood I could do it with, and she's like, that's what I want. And then everybody after that's just been like, I want one just like this, but with this logo, just like this, but So that's what I went with to start with, and that's what I'm doing. No, Sharon, the 1/8 inch stuff, I use it a lot of times for fit testing, like when I build my jigs and stuff. I got this stuff really cheap a while back when I was doing the ceiling in the shop, and I actually got like 9 sheets too much, and so I kept it because it's good for prototyping, making sure things fit together and snap together. Instead of using the 1/4 inch material, which is a little more expensive, I could use that, and I'm not out as much money for my R&D for a file that I'm building or whatever. So it just saves me a little bit of money.
yeah, it's always good to have some 1/4 inch stock on hand for, making a quick box, shop box, or making a jig for something. So
Yeah.
I even though some of the stuff doesn't laser very well or cut very well, I've often grabbed some of that less expensive stuff, whether it's at Home Depot, Lowe's, or Menards, just to have some on hand for that kind of thing.
Yeah, I got the box that this toolbox over here. Oh, what was toolbox? What was it? Oh, my wife's new refrigerator. I cut that cardboard up into panels. I've got
Yeah.
it out in the kiln in case I need a big
Nice.
piece of, like a 6 foot tall piece of cardboard.
Nice.
Somebody's asking about the springs on my enclosure. I don't know the exact measurements. I tried my best to match them up and put a link in that video, but they're almost. I think they're like maybe like 8.5 each long when they're compressed. But it's the weight. The pull is more what you need to be concerned with because you can always space out your fulcrum and your point of contact. It's how much weight they pull because you don't want it to be so much that you can't open it, but you don't want it to be so little that when you stand the lid up, if it does try to come back this way, it's just going to let it fall over. Because that's not good. But the way my spring system, the way it works, it holds the lid open and it also holds it closed because it basically, when that spring reaches that max tension, and then it pulls it back this way, or it reaches max and goes that way. This is a weird design. It's a lot of redneck engineering went into that.
No, I've seen that used on a variety of things. The spring fulcrum bit. So,
Yeah, it works.
and hey, if you get it a little strong, just consider it part of your cardio workout, right?
Yeah, yeah. Brandy comes in here and she grabs Enclosure Zilla and she's like, "Arr!" She's like, I don't know how you open that with one hand. I'm like, that may be why I had to have back surgery opening that enclosure so much.
There it is. That's where it's at. So, but well, William's asking if anyone's heard when Lightburn will have the CNC version. And last fall they were saying Q1, but that has come and gone. We're now into April, so I'll be honest, I haven't poked around at that recently. I've been really preoccupied. I haven't even really gotten enough shop time to do too much out here. So, have you heard anything new on that?
No, I've been out of the loop. Like I said, I've been staying so busy. I haven't. What researching time I have had, I've been researching stuff for the CNC, epoxy, and all that. So my research hours, while limited, have been directed at new stuff. So I haven't followed up on it.
So, Hopefully, I mean, I know a number of us are excited to see what it looks like, how it is, what the pricing is and such. But yeah, haven't heard much on it recently. Hopefully it's still in progress, and we'll see something from it. But at the same time, I want them to get it right. Doesn't have to be perfect, but get enough of it working so that it feels uh, like a legit piece of software. Because I mean, both you and I have played with a lot of different control softwares, and some of them you're just kind of like, okay, this is frustrating to use because of maybe limitations or broken tools and such.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love Lightburn. Like I said, I even catch myself, even though VCarve has a lot of the same features. I catch myself a lot of times going, you know what, this will be a lot quicker if I can just build it in Lightburn and shoot the SVG or the DXF over into VCarve. Because that's just where I'm comfortable. Now, on the same note, I'm hoping that they draw some of the characteristics from VCarve as far as like the tool library and stuff like that. I'm hoping maybe they'll make it to where you can import VCarve or all the different softwares, uh, tool files, tool path settings and everything. And if they do that, that'll make it really easy, so you don't have to go back and manually input everything. Which I wouldn't think that would be very hard, because most of them just use a CSV file,
Hmm.
and being able to export what I've got built up in VCarve and just send it straight over into Lightburn would be the way to go. So we'll see. I do know that like the Spoko, if I put a laser module on it, I can run it with Lightburn, but I have not fooled with that. Uh, I don't have a need really for a laser module on it.
Yeah, I mean, the only need that I would see is if you were, for some reason, needing to laser engrave something just that big, you
Yeah,
know, and I, I I can't think of the reason because a lot of times you can engrave with various bits with the CNC, and then you can paint or stain them different colors and such. So I can understand when you got one machine, you only have space for one machine, making it a dual purpose setup. But I've played around with a lot of uh, multi-use machines. The Swiss Army machines. It can do 3D printing. It can do CNC cutting. It can do
yeah,
vinyl, knife cutting and all that stuff. And it usually does one thing really well, a couple things okay, and one thing you're like, yeah, it can do it, but it's not great at it. So um, I, when possible, and when you're really using something a lot, it's nice to have that dedicated machine that it's built to do that specific purpose. So,
there's your one. I knew that one was coming.
have I thought of it? Oh yeah, I've thought of it. I, I've just been busy. I wanted to get through the pain of paying taxes this year. I've been really busy at work. The past, I don't know, it seems pretty much since the start of the year. We've got a big project going on, and had my boss take another job, so I'm filling in for some of their duties and such. So I just haven't had enough time to get caught up out here. Because I do want to, I kind of want to get a few more things out on it as more of the stock setup before going through the upgrade. So it's a little more current comparison between the two. So
Yeah. ET is saying, what is the minimum height from the camera to the laser bed? Can I go and still get the Atom Stack camera to work? ET, that's going to be directly related to the size of the work area. So the bigger the work area, of course, the higher you're going to have to be to encompass that work area. I recommend go as low to the workspace as you can and still see the entire work area. And then wherever that is, set it right there, lock it in, and set everything up. That would be my recommendation, because I'm hoping that you have a square work area, because the Atom Stack camera, which is actually what's on my overhead table, well, it is not working for some reason. Oh, probably because Lightburn picked it up. But it's more of a square image, so you're definitely you're going to want to pull that down to where you can see the entire workspace. because it's not a fisheye. It's a flat lens. Oh, I don't forget what the angle
Yeah.
is, but it's not real steep.
Yeah, it's pretty shallow. And I wanted to say, I think I was around 14 to 16 inches with that one on the Atom Stack square frame. That's roughly 400 by 400. So, you're going to be in that ballpark with that camera unless you're cutting down your area or, in a bigger setup. But
Yeah. All right. Have you ever had the 3018? I had the 3030. I did not have the 3018. Uh, I haven't seen what it looks like. I did start, of course, with the 4040 Pro. Uh, and understand that those little CNCs are going to have limitations. Yeah, that's the older 3018 Pro. So that's the predecessor to the 3030 and all the rest of them. It's like it's a bed slinger. But depending on what you plan on doing with it, you can learn the fundamentals with those machines, but you're going to have a very small work area and very limited as far as what you can do and what amount of time you can do it. That was the biggest thing that I learned going from the 3030 and the 4040 up to the 6050. Now, once you get up to the 6050, you can effectively make things in a reasonable amount of time. The 4040 and the 3030, you had to keep it small or else it would take hours to complete the job. So, what do you think? I know you're looking at it.
yeah, no, that's. I was just kind of browsing through a few of the other one. I mean, the nice appealing bit to it is it's cheap. You know, you
Yeah.
really don't have a lot into it. So, like you say, you're going to learn the fundamentals to it, but um, I've never actually run, one of the bed slinging. I've always had the moving gantry on all my machines. So I can't really speak to that part of it.
The 3030 was that way, and it took some getting used to because
Yeah.
you're especially coming from lasers because I'm so used to the bed staying still.
Hmm.
It took a little getting used to. It worked, but it was definitely a learning curve as far as just getting used to seeing it moving.
Yeah. I mean, I still stand by if a person can swing it, try to get into like the 4040. And they've got the Reno, which is like the budget version of it. Saves you about $150. Um, James Dean did a decent overview of that one, and he kind of had some opinions on it as far as if you're going to go with the Reno, just see if you can step up to the 4040 Pro. But now you're talking something about 3 to 4 times the price. So I don't know.
Yeah, Jeff said that his journey going from the 3018 up is that the 6060 has finally paid for all of his purchases. The 6060. So
Yeah.
yeah, they have a 60. Was it a 6030, and you can upgrade it to the 6060, and I
Hmm.
think that's how that works. But yeah, the 6050 felt and ran very strong compared to what I was used to with the 4040 and the 3030. With that Makita router on it, it was pretty decent. I actually would have liked to have seen what it was like with a 65 millimeter spindle on it, because now that I've gotten used to this machine, it's crazy how much more powerful a spindle is than those routers.
So, question from Rick asked a few weeks ago about safety glasses for the S1 and the F1. Will the same glasses work for both? Not necessarily, but you can get a set that will. Matter of fact, I have them back here. So, Free Mascot makes a pair, and I think they're like the version 6 or something like that, or style 6. There's a couple of them that will list both the 190 to 550 as well as 800 to 1100 nanometer wavelength. And you'll see it. I don't know if I can get my camera to focus on it, but right up at that top edge is where it has that marking. And that's really what you're looking for on any laser glasses, is that they're
Yep.
etched right on there. Um, And
Yeah.
so a lot of them are just rated for like that 550-ish range. But these pair actually cover both spectrums. Now they're not going to cover for a CO2. That's a whole nother wavelength. But for your blue diode and your IR modules, both on the F1 or the standalone ones, this is a set that will do both, and they're about $40 to $50 on Amazon.
Yeah, these I just finally found a pair of these. These are the same lens rating as what you've got, but
Yeah.
they're in this size or this build or whatever. Of course, if you want one of for each, then here's the free mascots for blue diode and IR. So I've got, and I had another pair, and I'm thinking one of my guests has wore them home because I have one more pair of green ones and I can't find them nowhere. I don't know where they went to. So I don't know if they're at Klein's house or maybe even a customer. I'm not sure, but they're gone. But they were the ones that came with the com marker.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I really don't miss them because they didn't have much tint at all to them. Jeff said now they have the 1,000 by 1,000 upgrade for the 6060. That would that'd be a pretty good sized machine there.
I feel like
As
you'd
long
be
as it was-
rebuilding most of the machine at that point.
Yeah, yeah. It does seem like you're pretty much changing out everything.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have your side plates, and your steppers and such, but you're going to have all new rails, both X, Y, and I guess you'd still have your Z gantry, but. Let's see.
Hey, we're knocking out
Welcome.
work and doing a live
Welcome.
tonight.
Welcome, Lumberyard Legends from windy Wyoming. I feel you on the wind the past few days. It has been something else up here in at least the northern part of the country. We had, I don't know. I mean, they had red flag warnings out for us because it's been so dry. Of course, it rained today, so that's great. But yeah, we had sustained winds in the 30s and gusts above 40. So
Yeah, it's been steadily warming back up here since the tornado. It got a little cool for the couple of days after the tornado went through.
yeah.
Let's
So
see here.
well, Brad is asking, what's the latest news on the Atom Stack A70? And the good news is they're in the U.S. Let me actually double check, but they are, I believe, out. They're on their way to each of us. And
Yeah, I was gonna say, let me check my tracking number before I lie about it.
we'll see. Now, my concern is I'm starting to run out of time before I head south.
It's easier on the phone. Hang on, let me pull my phone up here. Because
But
for some
yeah,
reason it's not clickable in the mail Mother Mail.
All right, so for me, it's showing as should be here on Wednesday.
Yes, they say I was one day behind you. I guess it's because you're closer to the West Coast or whatever. But mine is saying that it'll be here Thursday. So if nothing else, maybe you could come down and maybe you could just knock your review out here at the house.
Yeah, I'll just throw the laser in the van and give myself even more packing headaches on the way home with an assembled laser. But
I'm trying to find.
but no, they are finally on the way, and so we're excited to get those and test them out. And hopefully I can at least get an initial something knocked out before I head down to Clax, and then he'll have his, and maybe we can do more fun testing.
Okay, I finally found them.
What'd you find?
Somebody was asking for a link for the glasses.
Oh, I could put that in there. It's that.
That's the style that I have. The cooler style.
Mine are not as cool, but they do fit over my glasses.
So if you wear prescription glasses, you may want to get the ones that Steve wears. If not, if you want to look cool, you can get a pair of these. But These actually will work. So, like if you work with blue diodes and you work with IRs in your shop a lot, this does it. This minimizes the risk of you got your orange glasses on and you think that you have your other ones on and you work with the IR. Because this is what I used to wear, but now it's just as easy to wear these. That way, no matter which machine I grab, I'm good because you can't open the P2 while it's running, so I don't have to worry about
Mhm.
that. Because it'll just you just pull on it and nothing happens. So I like this option better just because of that, because I do have IRs and I do have blue diodes, so it's kind of one size fits all. So
Well, and
no,
these are
Jim,
actually
they will
the
not.
first. These are the first set I bought, just because of the frame size looked like they would fit over my glasses. So that was kind of dumb luck that it worked with both the blue diode and the IR. Now who looks weird?
If you want to watch the eclipse, this is what you need. This is a 12 darkness welding lens, and
Yeah, I
I can barely see the white parts of the TV.
I
So,
won't have that problem
well, my
because
daughter
it's
asked to borrow it, so she's like, "Dad, can I borrow your welding stuff so that I can watch the eclipse?" But now, if you need to see what you're doing, you can always just flip that up.
unfortunately I think up in our area they're calling for I think about a 70% uh, uh, occlusion or whatever, but we're probably going to be cloudy anyway, so it's just going to get a little darker.
Yeah. But now, if you have a welding helmet or whatever, as long as what I've read is it needs to be more than a 12 number 12 darkness or whatever. And like my solar powered hood that I got, I haven't checked it, but I just grabbed those out because it's a fixed lens and there's no danger of it not being charged and then look at it. But I think my oldest daughter and my wife one wound up finding some glasses made for that somewhere. But anyway,
Nice.
that's mine for when it comes through. I can watch it. I can wear those. But yeah,
Yeah.
I started to make a laser cut holder for the lens, but I was afraid I'd drop my lens and break it,
Mm, yeah.
so I just left it in there.
Yeah. Well, we'll
Oh,
see. Maybe the clouds will break up a bit, but we won't have a full eclipse either way. So
John, not with a laser. I haven't. Uh, I grew up in a garage, so we had rolls of gasket maker paper, but I haven't ever tried it with a laser. I have done it with just tapping it with a hammer and taking a pair of scissors and cutting them out, but never with a laser. Apparently, Steve has.
so I actually have, and I don't have any examples of it, but yeah, this is the hard part is it comes rolled up and you got to keep it flat. But
Yeah.
I've actually made these for small two-stroke engines for my RC hobby, and so basically I took the old one, traced it out, uh, brought it into Lightburn, and then cut through that material, and that was on my CO2. But it does work pretty well.
Hey, what do you think about having this guy on our live next week? I've been talking to him through email and messengers, and I was going to bring it up, but I haven't talked to you this week because I've been so busy. But what do y'all think? What's everybody in the audience think? Should we bring him on? What are we going to make him teach us to do? I've been watching a lot of his inlays and his epoxy videos and stuff, and trying to master my skills over here. So far, I'm not doing real well.
Well, sounds like maybe we can get some good tips on epoxy inlays then.
Yeah. So what do y'all think? Y'all drop a comment if y'all think we should. 'Cause I think it's a good idea. Because that next Sunday you're still going to be at home then, right?
Yeah, next Sunday the 14th I'll be at home.
Yeah. I didn't want to wait until it was going to be the Sunday that you're going to be down here because I figured we'll have
Right.
all kinds of stuff going on. So yeah, I think we'll be good next week. I think that would be the best time for it. So yeah, so we'll get him in here and he can teach us how to do epoxy and this stuff.
Yeah, I feel that comment. I know a little bit. I know a little about a lot.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, go ahead and put that on your calendar if you're clear. But yeah, me and him were messaging a couple of nights ago. Like I said, and I'd almost forgot about setting the live for this week because it's just been crazy. It's been busy. I know you've been busy,
Yeah.
but but yeah. So I think next week we'll do that. So I'll go try to snag the most embarrassing photo I can off of his YouTube page and put him in the thumbnail for next week.
Throw it in there. All right. Sounds good. Yeah, it'll give me a little bit of a breather so I can do some packing. I'll just listen. I'll be back here loading stuff up.
ET, that little machine, like I said, it's not a terrible machine. I had a little bit of problem with the first one that I got with a loose screw. But it was one of the screws that hold the thing together, and basically they just didn't. Whoever put it in didn't put any thread locker on it or anything. But other than that, it does well for what it costs. It's it's not a Lasermatic as far as the engineering goes, but it is stable enough to be functional. The laser, I will say, the little 10-watt module that it comes with is pretty hot for a 10-watt. And the length of focus on that little module is forgiving enough that if you focus it, like, say, a millimeter high, even if there is any kind of sway in the machine, you won't see it in the engraver and the cut. But the one I've got, I hadn't had any problems out of that part of it. It works with light burn great, just like all the other Sculpt Fun machines. I've actually considered trying to engineer myself a way of holding a rotary or chuck underneath it and trying to make it, just a little rotary box. But it's not something with the Lasermatic. As long as I've got it sitting here, it's not something I really want to go Frankenstein in a machine to make it do tumblers like that. So, but yeah. All right, everybody says bring him on, so I guess we'll bring him in here. So that'll be next Sunday. So if you're here and you want to see, I don't know what kind of surprises he'll have, but we'll have him in here next Sunday. And then the following Sunday, you're actually going to be on location at the shack, right?
Yep.
if everything goes as planned.
Yep.
He is going to be camping at the Clack Shack. I've got him a camper lined up. We'll be setting it up out here in the front. I'm probably going to try to at least put it at like a 30-degree angle so that so that he just rolls when he walks in the door. I may level it. We'll see. But we're going to have Steve's going to be camping at the shack, and that's got to be a video. We're going to have to make a video of that. But he'll be right next. He'll be right next to the cows, and I'm going to try my best to get the cows in the middle of the night to come right up to the fence and just be like, "Mrrr."
Well, well, I have some new headphones and some new earbuds coming, so we'll see. They're both active noise canceling as well. So,
hey, it's not very noisy over here unless it's animals. You may actually need to bring a noise machine with you if you're used to like the hustle and bustle of a big city, because at night it's just going to be crickets. It's insects and animals is all you're going to hear. Occasionally, the jacked up 4-wheel drive comes by, but not often.
So it sounds basically like my neighborhood.
Yeah. But yeah. Greg. Greg, what machine do you have? You got an MK2? Is that what I'm guessing you have? The new well, I don't guess it matters if it's a 30 watt or not. Hang on a second, let me look at something. I've been talking with Greg about this or messaging with him, and apparently he's having some issues. So I think I know an easy way to fix these issues. Give me just a second.
Just turn up the CPAP.
I mean, I guess that's an option if you have one.
Not yet. No, I don't have one yet. But no, I usually once I'm asleep, I'm out pretty solid. So
All right, let me export this. Oh my goodness, I got a stink bug flying around in here. That ain't good. Let me export this file for him.
now, do you get alerts at night on your little proximity thing?
Mm-hmm.
Do they wake you up?
Sometimes, but I
Okay.
also have two 75-pound German shepherds. They'll wake me up, so they'll let you
Okay.
know.
So bring some beef jerky.
They'll let you know. But yeah, the dogs have nights. They usually do that night watch. Uh, but yeah, if they sound the alarm, you know, we just handle it.
While you're
It's
doing
a
that,
te-
I'm gonna
it's a team effort. Yeah, I'm trying
I'm
to
gonna
get this. I'm gonna let him have my the actually I am exporting. What I'm doing here is I'm exporting the working Lightburn setup file for that machine that is running over my shoulder right there, and I'm gonna send this to you so that you can just download my configuration file. And if it still does it, I don't know. Maybe there's a wire crossed, but because this one you can see that as this one back here is running just fine. And let's see, that's the 4 Max. Blah 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 blah. Rosie laser. Okay, let me get this. Copy link.
So Jared's asking if there's a Facebook page to show stuff they're working on and see what others are working on. We actually do have a laser engraver community group that's kind of focused around our combined audience, and so there should be links down below each description, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, that will link you to that group, and that's a good place to share projects you're working on, questions you're having. We try to check in as often as we can. Past couple of weeks, we've both been pretty busy, so it's been a little hard. But other people in there very helpful and also sharing things as well. So encourage if you're on Facebook, it's a good community to join. We try to keep a bit of the spammy bots out that like to try to get you to design or have them design a logo for you or give away free things that someone bought and they just can't stand to have it anymore, all those red flags. So we try to clear those out, but get a lot of people sharing their ideas and asking their questions. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, I've started getting them commenting on my videos and stuff on my Facebook page. It is annoying.
Hmm.
Greg, if you're still here, feller, if you'll click that link right there, that'll take you to Google Drive. You can download the configuration file that I'm running on this machine right here at this time. I just backed it up, made me a clean backup of it, and shared that out to you. And download that. And when you go to add the machine, instead of adding it manually, just use the import function or create from, is it create from file or import, whichever function, whichever the button says. Let me look, make sure. Uh, Import. The button says import. So what you'll do is open up Lightburn, hit import, and then direct it to that file location where you save that file at, and it'll add it, and it'll be set up just like mine with the framing and everything will be the way it needs to be. So, and the MK2. I remember Leo saying the other day that the 20 watt and the 30 watt use the same controller, so it shouldn't be any difference. Oh,
Yeah.
those little things don't want to fall out of the hole. There they go. Oh.
So if anybody has questions, throw them in there. We try to answer them, much as Clack just did with the. Careful there. Okay.
Yeah.
Clack did with the machine config file. We try to get people running. It's a thing that both Clack and I like to do is help people out, whether it's in the comments of our videos in the Facebook group or here on our lives. So ask away about your machines or about projects or about business. We'll try to answer them. as best we can. Otherwise, we end up talking about the weather and random stuff.
Yep, we'll be talking about chicken livers and cows. Y'all don't watch it. Not sure I'm following. My 48 by 48 enclosure, I put table legs on the base with those screw-on things from Lowe's. I was trying to hook up my exhaust system, scooting the base around. Not understanding completely there, V. I'm missing something.
Well, I've seen. I don't know if it's the same thing. I've seen some of the. They're like a workbench kit, and they're for 2x4s, and then they kind of have the corner pieces that you basically just
Oh, okay.
screw into each one. Maybe that's what she's using, and I could see if a leg got twisted too much, it can
Oh.
pull on those screws. But
Yeah, apparently it folded up. Apparently it folded up on her. So
yeah.
we're going to have to go back with some 45 bracing. Yeah, that's why if you look at my CNC table over there, that thing's 45 braced left and right, and it is built bulky. Because I was afraid that with all that weight that my legs on it might fold up if I didn't build it properly.
Tammy's got a question about acrylic. I'm having a hard time finding 4mm acrylic for LED light bases other than on Amazon. Wondering if it even exists. Where do we buy our acrylic? Now, you have your buddy with the sign. What is it? The engraving shop.
Yeah, I snag a. If I need anything big, I get it from him. I do buy some on Amazon for small stuff, and then of course, X Tool has gave me a couple of boxes of their stuff to try out. But yeah, if I need a piece that's bigger than 12 by 12 or whatever, I got a friend in town that orders it in 4x8 sheets, and I can go by his shop and he'll cut me off a piece, whatever side I need. Yeah, Greg's saying that it only mirrors when he brings in a file that's saved as a JPEG but traced in Lightburn. That sounds like that's going to be something to do with the origin, like it used to when you would bring an Xtool file in. If I don't know if it's only doing it with certain files, then it's definitely going to be something in that file. Check to make sure it's not changing your origin when you bring those files in or something, because that's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah. But going back to the acrylic question, if you have a local sign shop, you might want to reach out to them because sometimes they'll either offer you their scraps for free or cheap, or they might be able to sell you some, off their order. And hardwood dealers are like this too. If they're placing an order for lumber and plywood, and you've got maybe a specialty thing, sometimes adding it onto theirs helps them and helps you. So it helps to reach out to these places. Otherwise, there are some places such as ePlastics online where you could reach out to and see what they have. They have a lot of different thicknesses that might get close to that, and then they offer them in different sizes. So not saying it's going to be any more affordable than Amazon or not, but it might be a place to look. So, but yeah, I generally, I've got a couple people that work in sign related business here in town too. So if I've got something weird, I'm usually able to reach out to them for some stuff too.
Yeah. Phobus is asking how long can the rolling 30 watt run at 100% power while cutting without overheating? I'm gonna be honest with you. I've never had any machine overheat, and y'all see I've been running this guy slamming it for the past hour or right at an hour. Well, I started right before the live, so probably about an hour. My X40, I've been running it all day because I was cutting these things out 4 at a time on it. But it's a little noisy with the flap that I put in there for exhaust. It'll sit there and ting, 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 ting. So I decided to just, while we were doing the live, I just do them one at a time on that machine, because when I fire this guy up, like with 4 of them in there, it takes like a couple hours, because I'm running this thing at like 150 LPI, and it's just it's an insane amount of detail. You can see all the detail and everything that's in that. So that takes a minute. Yeah. I've done a whole bunch of them. I don't know if y'all can see them all over there, but I've been doing those most of the day today.
So Jim's wanting you to talk about engraving glass with the 30-watt Rolly Rotary. And I say you because you have one.
I haven't messed with glass with it. I try to stay away from glass because glass is one of those things that one, it's you can frost it. I've got mason jars, wine glasses, and stuff over there that I've done, but I don't get a lot of requests for it, and it is very finicky, especially from machine to machine. You've got to go through a whole bunch of testing because if you over engrave glass, it will shatter. Like it'll either shatter while it's engraving, or it'll shatter as soon as you pick it up and run it under the water. Because you're actually causing little tiny microscopic chips in that glass, and I've had a lot of them that I've engraved them, and man, it looks good. And I'd pick it up and go to wipe it off, and it just crumbled. Especially wine glasses, and it seems the more expensive the wine glass, the easier they crumble. The
Yeah.
cheaper ones tend to stay together better. Matter of fact, hang on.
He's digging.
Yeah. Man, I
made
got
it.
so many. I had to go over and dig through my test materials. I see that was an Adam. I think that was a X tool, maybe. I don't know. It could have been a Comgrow. But that's with Surmark. I do prefer the look of Surmark because you don't have to go near as deep. And if you heat that glass up, it actually mixes in with the glass and will make it kind of a gray tone. And so here's a wine glass. And some of these are without Surmark and some are with Surmark. It just depends. But as you can see, I finally got it. I finally got it right there. But I bought like this is like a Dollar Tree wine glass. I bought some at Walmart and shattered every one of them. And I wish you could see, but it's kind of hard to see. But there's little tiny. Some of the places where I engraved it, there's little tiny set and little tiny chips. Let me grab that other one. I got another one over here too. Woo! And it's dusty here in the shack. We clean this off where y'all can see it. So, like that one right there, I used Sunmark on that, and it did a pretty decent job. As long as whatever you got's not dark. But if you look real careful, right there at the top of that H, there's a little tiny crack in that glass. And now it didn't fall apart, but you can, like, if you turn the light just right, you can see it refracting the light, and there's a crack there. That's just a frosted Clack Shack logo. But if I'm going to do glass, I like doing these guys. You can't hardly break these. You've got to really go into them to break these. Another one is shot glasses. They're tough to break. Shot glasses, because the glass is thicker, they're a lot more forgiving when it comes to breaking them. So let me go put all this fragile stuff back over in the corner.
So one of the things that I want to play with at some point is basically creating nucleation points. And so that's where you put the engraving on the inside of the glass, and you do it for like beer glasses. And it causes kind of the carbonation to interact with that texture, and it kind of makes bubbles rise from those things. So one of these days I'm going to go get myself a box of inexpensive beer pints or something like that and do a little playing around with that, see how that might work out. So
now, I will say this. If you want to do something fun, something that you really can't tear up, and that's something you can do in a rotary, get yourself some terracotta pots. These things are fun because it makes, like, you don't have to mark them or nothing. It turns the material to that dark gray, uh, and you can put like this. I just kind of this was a practice. I did some little pots, and they wanted like a decoration around the top of them. So this was my practice one. But terracotta is fun. It's cheap. You can buy these things at like almost anywhere for a little of nothing, and it don't matter how hard you hit them. I haven't broken one of these on the laser. Now I've dropped a few, but I haven't broken one on the laser. But these are fun, and it does a really. It's hard to see it, but it does a really good job of taking text and engraving and stuff like that. Shading, if you're trying to do a photo, not so much, but logos and stuff, it works really well. I guess since it's spring and people are planting flowers, I should probably revisit this. I think I've got some more of them over there. I actually got some salt and pepper shakers. I got me a couple of glass bricks over there. I got all kinds of stuff over there. I'm bad
This
to
is
be like, just grab stuff and stick it in a buggy when I'm shopping and be like,
a
oh, I might need that for a video one day.
show and tell time with Clack, it seems.
Well, I got test materials. That whole shelf to the right of Enclosure Zilla is like the bottom two is nothing but test materials. So
Well, I mean, the only thing I've got to show off, it's nothing new, but I
Uh-oh.
was impressed. What?
I was just waiting. The suspense is getting me.
You said, "Uh-oh." I'm like, "What?" Uh, so this is your typical tumbler, stainless steel tumbler. But it came out very clean. Let's see if I can get it to focus without being too bad. Very clean. And this was done with a simple little 5-watt laser pecker unit on their rotary. So
A 5 watt what?
a 5-watt Galvo laser by a company that combines two words together that you think are funny.
Oh,
But this came out really well for just a 5-watt on this blue color too. Sometimes those can be
yeah.
a bit tricky. So I was impressed that I was figuring this is going to be my scrap one, the test, and it actually came out really well. So
Yeah.
you don't need a 70-watt atom stack to do that.
Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I find that a lot of people have better luck with the lower power machines doing tumblers because with the bigger machines, a client ran into this the other day. If you run too much power, you start
Yep.
staining the stainless. But if your machine has just enough power to get the coating off of it, there's not any risk of actually marking it because that's actually just done on bare stainless, and that's
Uh-huh.
permanent. That don't come off. And so if you run too much power and you're trying to do a tumbler, you're gonna get that gray underneath there.
Yep.
Whereas if you don't have enough power to do that, then the danger is not there.
Yeah, and so this will be in my video. I've been editing it today, and hopefully it'll get out tomorrow. But when it came off the rotary, this was pretty dark. I wasn't sure it actually gotten through the coating, but quick little work with some Windex and the magic eraser pad, and it shined right up. So really
Cool.
really impressed with that. So we'll see if I can get my editing done on that one.
Greg, if you have Adobe Illustrator, you can bring AI files into Lightburn. But for the most part, you're probably gonna, if you're doing graphics and logos and stuff like that, PNGs are easy. But if you can export as an AI file, you can bring that in also, and it'll actually retain more of the lines and stuff. But I usually just snag mine as PNGs and go with it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're working in Photoshop, that's more of raster editing and such. So that's definitely going to be, PNG or JPEG territory there.
I like PNGs myself. I don't like dealing with JPEGs because PNGs just seem easier to trace to me than a JPEG, unless you do like a transparent background JPEG or whatever, which usually in my Adobe it makes you export those as PNGs. Oh, I had to upgrade to the better editing software, So
Oh,
instead of
really?
Premiere, yeah, instead of Premiere Rush, now I actually have Premiere Pro. Yeah, because I started using GoPros and I started using my glasses and I started using all these other cameras and the editing software. Before I'd have to convert them and then save them and move them, and so
Mm,
I was like, you know what? I'm spending hours. I got to figuring it up. I was spending about 3 or 4 hours a week moving video and transferring it from one format to the other. And I'm like, by the time I take that time away from doing other things, it's costing me money. I'd be better off just to pay for the software. So I had
sure.
to upgrade. Now I can just drag them straight off the SD card from the GoPro and straight up into Premiere. So it's made my life a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I have access to that as well. But Rush has been it, it it's not as convoluted, so it's been easy to use. But there are
Well,
times I find myself going meh. So
well, let me take that back. It's not. It's. I upgraded my Rush. I had to get the what do you call it? Crap. I'm still using Rush, but I had to get the Adobe Pro. Is it Adobe Pro Online or something like that in order to get the codec to allow me to
mm,
use those other files. That's what it was. It's
okay,
not.
gotcha.
It went from $30 something a month to like 50. So so that hurt. But I got to figuring it up. The time loss was taking more money than what it's going to cost me.
Uh, yeah, I actually love the LA Awesome Cleaner and use it a lot, but I just happen to not have it out here in the garage, so I was
Woo,
just
cutting it
using
close.
standard Windex, and that worked okay, just with a little extra oomph from the Magic Eraser pads. But no, that's a good tip. I love that stuff for cleaning a lot of the gunk off lasers as well. So So Sharon's asking on the terracotta pots, can you put an image just on the front without a rotary? And depending on the size of the pot and the curve, you'd be able to get it by with a certain degree of doing that.
It's going to depend on the curvature
You
and
know,
how big of an image you're talking. If you're talking something the size of a quarter, yeah, absolutely. But you know, the smaller, the steeper the curve. So you're going to be out of focus a little bit. Uh, but but yeah, you can. If you got a bigger one and you had a smaller graphic, I think that would you can make it work for sure.
so Steve's asking, has heard mention of tiling on a CNC. Is this a hard process? And no, it's not terribly difficult. You need to kind of set up your machine to have some registration points. So um, the most common way is you'll have maybe 2 points that you will like peg into, maybe with screws or something. You'll do the first half of it, and then you'll loosen that sheet up, and then you'll reference those peg points for your next two to get them into a known spot, and then you'll start the second part of your job. Some people can also do this with, if you have a fixed rail that's going to hold your zero in one axis, then you can slide that along it, and then you just need to know that you move it X amount and get that exactly. So it's easiest by using some fixed point pegs that'll be absolutely immovable, and they're in line with the axis. But it just breaks up the job into tiles, and then you just need to know that you can move your material exactly that distance and then start the next job. So
Well, hello, Mr. Dennis. Oh, there's your question about your LP.
uh, so I've got the Laser Pecker 2, and no, it does not work with Lightburn. They do have decent software, so it connects Bluetooth to your phone or a tablet, and they have two different versions. There's a very basic one, but they have their they call it Design Studio, and that allows you to import more things, work with STLs a little bit, or SVGs a little bit easier. They also have the equivalent on desktop, I believe, for both Windows and Mac, and it actually replicates the Design Studio from the tablet pretty well. And I would call it like a Lightburn Lite. It's got a lot of your input. As far as they've got some clip art, they've got text. You've got you can import an image, and it does a pretty good job, but it doesn't have the flexibility. What you really don't have is like the control of, you can't tell it to crosshatch and do different things like that. You set up the power, and then they call it the depth, and the higher the number, the deeper it's going to go, so the slower it goes. So it's kind of inverse of your speed. And then you can set up your passes. So it's decent software. It's better than a lot of the other ones I've tried to use. And I was able to do everything that once I get the video out, you'll see all the projects I was able to do with it. So it's decent, but it's not your full-fledged Lightburn by any means.
This little guy works with Lightburn. Great. It works great with Lightburn. Now, disclaimer, guys, if you get this and you get the chuck or you get that little weird base that rolls back and forth, you're on your own, okay? Not a fan of those two attachments, but this, as it sits like this, actually works pretty well for something small and relatively cheap. Now, this is the 10-watt Pro, so it's a little more expensive, but this is the longer Nano. And like I said, I've been playing around with it. It does great for as long as your work area is, the size of a coaster. You're good. You can take this little plate out of the bottom, set it on the corner of a charcuterie board or something, and engrave that way. It's not light. It does come with the little shield thingy, so you can put it on here. But I just wear glasses because the shield's kind of, the way the focus sets, that shield just kind of, it's a little much. But this little guy, like I said, without the attachments, I like it. The attachments, don't care for them. I can't get the accuracy that I'm used to with the attachments. And if I had nothing else to use, maybe I would like it. But it's just not worth the hassle for me. But this little guy in this configuration actually works pretty well. It's a blue diode too, but it's a Galvo. But it actually installs without a Galvo license, which is cool. It's basically an XY machine.
Yeah, it's just G-code machine, so. Very cool. Pat's asking, what do y'all use for cleaning the overdust from burning?
As in the pieces? Or as in all over my shop?
I'm guessing on the lasers, since it's talking about burning. Now, I think we both have a similar setup for that, is that if you have kind of the residue that's stuck to the material, we've got random orbit sanders, and using like a 220 grit, something really light, that's just going to take that surface. It's not going to dig into your engraving too much, but it'll kind of take that surface kind of vaporized material off. And then that often puts just a tiny little bit of sawdust into your engravings, and that's where some compressed air works really well. So that's what I do. I think you do mostly. Now, that's not going to work if you're one of the people who do like the borax method or something, because that'll blow out a lot
Yeah,
of
the
that
borax
stuff and such.
that.
But
I don't use that. You were talking about tiling on the machines or using a block or whatever. Let's see if I get my little wireless camera to work here. Look at that. Wow. That is that's my stop on my x-axis right there. And don't look at all the dust, but that's the stops for my edge. So if I've got a piece of material, I can take and I put it here, or I have my little indexing block here. I don't want to be on this edge. I slide that in there, and then put that in there, and then take these guys and clamp everything down. Once they get clamped, I slide that out. This will also you can line up these guys here. So if I want to go line it up or not. So, good go. All right.
yeah, we're going to need captions next time.
I got to figure out how to turn the mic on this. Let's see if I can get it to work.
But
It says the mic's on it.
yeah, well, it wasn't picking you up very well.
Uh, well, that's unfortunate.
So, yeah, Chris Gallagher clarified that Lightburn sounds like Lightburn works on the LaserPecker 4, and so that's their dual blue diode as well as IR, similar to the X-Tool F1. So it's nice to know that that one works with Lightburn.
I actually have a wireless microphone, but I don't have it hooked up to my computer.
Yep.
But anyway, you got to see the parts. You get the idea. You could have narrated for me. Oh, I've got wireless mics. They're right here. They're just not hooked up. I use them in my other videos. If I'm gonna do a live to where I know I'm gonna be moving around, I will put one of them and plug it in. I've got a cable somewhere right here that I can plug into. But yeah, I think I got one right here.
Yeah, I can. I've got the second line in on my mixer board, so I can just plug that in there and move around if I need to.
We all don't have mixer boards.
But
I do have a line in on my audio card though.
Dennis is asking, you have any knowledge or opinion about a 60-watt Monport laser? Now, did you say you knew someone who had one of those?
My buddy Jeremy Lett over here near me, he got one, and I had never seen one, and he was having problems getting it configured, and so he reached out to me and was like, "Hey, could you come, look at my machine?" And I'm gonna be honest with you, it wasn't bad. I was kind of like, in the beginning, I was like, it's probably gonna be junky because I had my experience with the little M40, and it wasn't great. But to be honest with you, the one that he had, I was really impressed with it, especially for the price. It had a big work area, automatic bed, like autofocus, whole 9 yards. Now we had to set it up correctly, and he was having some issues with that. But because I quit using my Monport, and he's a retired trooper, and he lives like 3 miles, 4 miles that way. But he said he didn't have a chiller, that he didn't know he had to have one. He was going to have to order one or whatever. So I wound up letting him get my chiller that I had for my Monport, and that's what he's running now. But he does a lot of like badges and stuff for law enforcement. Let me see if I can find his page. I'll show you some of the pictures. But he does some pretty cool work, and he's loving the machine. Every time I turn around, he's putting out pictures and stuff of different badges and so forth that he's doing. And he's doing some pretty good work. So let me find some. He's got a lot of other stuff on his page here. There we go. Let me save this so we ain't sharing his name necessarily. But yeah, here we go. That's some of the stuff that he makes, and it's doing a good job from what I can tell because he's cranking out stuff. It's pretty cool, and as you can see, this is like in front of his fireplace or whatever. So that's not a small piece. So yeah, he likes it. Last time I talked to him, he said it was still running good. Hadn't had any more problems with it, and the only problem he had was it just wasn't set up properly. Like Lightburn, it was grinding and stuff because the origin wasn't set correctly, and he was trying to. It was a whole. It took me probably about 45 minutes of testing and to get everything working right. The autofocus, it wasn't autofocusing correct because the macros and just the way it was set up wasn't correct. But once we got it dialed in, man, that thing, you could hit the autofocus button and goes down, touches off with the probe, focuses, and it was ripping through material. Because he had called me and was like, "Hey, I can't cut 6mm, 4mm material with faster than like 8mm a second." And I'm like, "Dude, that is wrong. Something ain't right." Mm-hmm. And but yeah, it's he likes it and he does good work. He had started with an X-Tool D1, and then he moved up to having two X2D1s, and then after he started selling a lot of his badges and stuff, that's when he decided it was time to get a bigger machine that was faster because he was spending all night out there letting those things burn. And so he went with Monport because he found a good deal on one. I think he only paid like $3,500 for the machine. Now, it's not one that you're going to want to try to bring in your house. It's in his garage, so he has a big garage door he can roll it through, uh, especially if you're having to take it upstairs because it is a beast. It's a big old
Yeah.
machine.
Well, the nice thing about a lot of those Monport, Monport, Tech, and such is they're variations on a theme, and so you hope you get good support from them. But even if you can't, or if your machine's out of warranty, the parts are fairly generic, and they're easy to find either aftermarket parts or similar parts that will either replace directly or retrofitted fairly easily as well. So it's it's not a Rayjet or a Trotec where you're going to be pretty much dealing with that company for their parts. So.
Yeah.
And that's one thing when I got mine, 8-9 years ago, I knew I was taking a risk buying one off of eBay, but it was very kind of generic, and I'd read through a lot of the forums and I'm like, okay, I think I've got a good idea of what I'm getting and, where I can find parts and who I can help reach out to about support and such. And, it's done well, but I went into it feeling pretty confident about working on electronics, feeling pretty confident working about the mechanics of it and such. If you don't have that confidence, it's nice to have a company that's going to be able to back you up on it. So,
Yeah. He, from what I saw of it, it wouldn't be that hard to work on. And that was one thing that I told him was like, it looks, the parts look like every other laser. So I don't think it would be that hard if we ever did have to work on it. But so far he hasn't called me back. So I found some more pictures he's got. That's some more of his stuff right there. But he does a lot of those type things, and does good work with them. I don't know that I have the patience to be sitting around putting all those little pieces together. It's not really my thing, but he enjoys it, and like I said, apparently he's making enough money to pay for that machine, so that's what counts.
yep.
Oh, I'm on the cut over there. I think I about got all those. Let's see, that's 4, that's 5. I got to change designs after this one. I got two different logos I'm using on those. But yeah, I hadn't used the whole tile function on my machine. I've been just 2x4 sheet of plywood's done everything I've had to do so far.
Well, yeah, I mean, and if you've got a big enough machine and software to drive it, that you don't find yourself in that arena. But it more often than not, your project outgrows your machine, and you got to figure out how to make it work then. So.
Yeah, and see, I knew that was probably going to be a problem. That's why I got as big as I could get. And I'm going to be honest with you. Looking at the way they've got that machine built, it wouldn't take a whole lot to make that thing 8 foot by 4 foot. Another set of rails, and of course the screws would be the hardest part to replace, because it's got ball screws. So I mean, just a longer ball screw and another set of 4 foot rails. But yeah, and it almost looks like they have put in their engineering a plan to do so, because there's some screw holes and stuff in the way that the rails go together that don't make sense unless you were planning on marrying 2 of those rails together. So I'm curious to see if that comes out here for too long. Jeffrey's asking, do we start an online store or go straight to Etsy? I'll let you start with this one because you've actually been doing Etsy a lot longer than I have.
Well, actually, I've been doing Etsy less than I ran an online store. I had my own domain and ran a couple different e-commerce packages on it, and that was a lot of work. It was a lot of pain to set everything up, keep it updated, add in the SSL certs, get email tied into it and such. So it depends on what you're using for your online store. If you're using your own domain and doing your own web development, or if you're doing something like a taking your domain to another place like Shopify is a big popular one. So the benefit that you have of doing your own is you're not going to be competing with people on the same site. Um, but depending on the level of integration you have from other services setting that up for you, your tax integration, doing your shipping integrations like that, that can be some extra work. The benefit with Etsy is they take care of a lot of that for you. There is definitely a cost to it. That's where their fees come in. But they handle the sales tax for almost any jurisdiction, any country that you want to ship to, which can be a headache, and that's worth something to some people. But you're also then in a small shop in a large pool, and they will advertise for other shops on your listings. So um, Etsy is kind of the easy way to get started, and then you kind of got to see from there if you feel like you're overwhelmed and not getting promoted enough and getting lost in the crowd. It might be good to move off there. But if you've got something that's unique and you've got kind of a niche where you do something special that you're not going to have a lot of competition, if you price your things right, yeah, Etsy's got some fees, but you factor that into it, and I would consider it kind of the easy button for setting up online. But with anything else, you're going to have to drive, you're going to have to drive you're going to do all the advertising, So if you spin up your own domain and you don't have a way to drive people to it, you're going to probably see less traffic.
I just want to sit. I just want to dedicate this to Brian. Yes, he's wrong. Uh, yeah, I started out selling on Facebook locally, and that's all I still don't do physical products on Etsy, just because I don't have time to do the shipping and everything. Everything I do local. I either do drop off somewhere in town, or pick up here at the house, and that's all I do as far as physical products. But I do have, of course, my Etsy shop for files and stuff. But more or less, the only reason I started the Etsy shop for files was because people kept wanting to buy designs that I did, because not because they necessarily couldn't do what I was doing, but just because it was quicker. They'd rather pay me $3 or $5 to do something than have to sit down for 45 minutes to an hour and design it. And people started asking, was like, hey, if you'll fix it to where I can buy it, I will buy this file from you so that I don't have to recreate it. And it kind of become the way that I could help kind of finance, file development, because some of these files actually do take several prototypes and take several iterations before you get it right. And so I started doing it at first just to kind of get my money back for the countless pieces of material that I used. And so I still do. Just like the other day, I did the baseball things, and everybody was like, "Ooh, I want that file." So I stick them out there. If you want to build your files, I got videos that'll show you how to build your own. But if you don't, you can come by mine, save yourself some time, and help keep the lights on here at the shack. So that's kind of the way. That's kind of the way my Etsy started. I don't do selling per se on Etsy as far as products. All my stuff's local, and I keep plenty. Especially like I said, I did baseball season's never really been a big deal for me. I did a few things last year around baseball season, leather gloves, kids want their names on their gloves, stuff like that. But it was just a few. It wasn't a lot of them. But now this baseball season, it's actually, I think baseball may turn into one of my better uh, events. The way it's looking.
Well, and sometimes that what works one year doesn't work the next year. So it's great to have that kind of ever
Mm-hmm.
expanding portfolio of things that, maybe one year you're hot on graduation stuff, but then the next year you're hot on, spring sports stuff.
Yeah.
So it's good to try to expand that, just because we've all been there. Something's really hot and then something changes and you're like, oh, now that dried up. And if you don't have something to backfill it, then that can put you in a hot spot if you're counting on that income or that business. So, and yeah, file development, that's a real thing. I mean, it took me a good 2 or 3 to get this one right.
you, you and your you and your old clack on a stick. Uh, Key Woodcraft, you probably, if you went to Durbin's, you probably actually saw my oldest daughter and just didn't know it because she works there. So she sells stuff at Durbin's and she's there most every day. So. No, Brian. This isn't. It's not gonna be my RV. I've kind of worked something up with a buddy of mine that has one to use. Now, don't tell Brandy, but I am going to try to use this one as kind of a. Oh, look, we need one of these. But I do plan on getting one for when I retire, but just not yet. So, uh, this one's more of a borrowed camper because I don't have one. I offered to rent it, but like the guy's pretty good friends with me, and like I help him do stuff, and he helps me do stuff. So I'm hoping it's not gonna cost me a whole lot of money for it, and it's gonna save Steve pretty good chunk because he didn't have to pay for a motel room. So we can kind of minimize his expenses for coming down and everything. Uh,
And
yeah.
I'm told it's not a Breaking Bad kind of motorhome. So
Oh no, it's nice. His is nice. Matter of fact, him and his wife and kids just got back from spring break using it, so it's nice.
gonna work on my cousin Eddie impression.
Uh, Jeffrey wants to know: do either you do consulting that could look at my store and see what I may or may not be doing wrong? Not per se. I guess we do consulting, but typically it's in these Sunday Night Lives where we answer questions and just kind of describe our processes. And guys, I'll tell you right now, I am no professional at this. My wife has ran businesses for 20 odd years. Uh, Me, not so much. I will tell you this: maximizing income is all about minimizing expense, and that's where, in my opinion, Etsy helps some people because they do a lot of the stuff that nobody thinks about when they go start a website. Like Steve said, with marketing and everything, they do it for you. There is a fee for it, but if you had to go pay somebody to, optimize your Google uh, returns and your Google analytics and stuff like that, and try to get you to come back in the top so many pages of a search and all these things, by the time you do all of that, you're going to spend probably more than you would if you just went with Etsy, especially if you're not selling like bukus of stuff. Uh, Etsy's just kind of a DIY easy thing to do. Now, there's a lot of Etsy shops out there that are, competitive, no doubt. But Facebook Marketplace, Facebook pages, local word of mouth, most hobbyists, small business startups, that'll get you a good bit of business. I try to stick with local. So
Yeah, if you've got a halfway decent community business, like a group of community businesses, and you can do a little networking, that'll help a lot because then even if they're not the ones going to buy from you, you're going to be in their mind that, hey, I know this guy. Talk to me about that stuff, and you can reach him here. So uh, you can't be the engineer that just figures out how to make stuff. You got to be a salesman. You got to be a bit of a networking person. You got to get out of your shell a little bit to do that. So
and Brandy's not here to say it, but I will tell you this. Go find out in your community, is there a chamber of commerce? Is there a local merchants association? Is there a group of people like-minded like you that you could partner with or maybe, do things for or do things with to kind of help get you some exposure? Even if it's free stuff or dirt cheap stuff. A lot of these people talk about, oh, well, don't, you got to price it this way, that way. No, you don't. When you price something, if you're trying to get your business going, sometimes you got to give stuff away because the advertisement that you get from that one or two things that you gave away may bring business into you. Now, once you get jobs coming in, you do need to be careful how you price it and make sure that the profit margin is suitable for you. But in the beginning, freebies have gotten me more work than I can even care to mention because I give stuff away like a lot of times. I'll go into a place and just give them a bottle opener or something, you know, and be like, "Oh yeah, you can do that. Yes, I can. And I can put pretty much anything you want on that. So if you want them, let me know. This is how much I can do them for." And sometimes they call back, sometimes they don't, but that's literally like a 50-cent blank. I have inhaled some dust.
So yeah, it's whatever you have around, doing a little networking will help you out. And yeah, I fact, your freebies can also be. I mean, you got to learn your project. You can make some freebies. Consider it advertising. Consider going to a craft fair and don't set a sales goal. Just say the cost of this is my tuition on making some contacts. It's going to, learning what people want. Um, you got to be okay with spending some money, not making money necessarily on every single thing as you're first getting started in a new area, whether it's a new thing you're doing, whether it's a new community or area you're trying to tap, or if you're just starting out your business. So
Yeah, Pat's got an interesting question about air assist. I'll let you go first because you know my answer.
I use it all the time. When engraving and or when cutting. Now, on if the laser gives me the flexibility to do it, um, having variable speed, being able to maybe bring that air assist down a little bit during engraves can be helpful. But if you play with your settings, you should be able to get a quality engrave while still running your air, and that's going to do a lot for you as far as keeping your machine running better, keeping your lens clean, and in some cases actually giving you a better burn than not having it running. So I always have it on at some level. And did you just spill that on yourself?
It came out the hole in the top. Yeah,
Okay.
it's water. It's just really cold water, and it hit me in my sensitive parts. Eh. All right, that was a mess. Uh, yeah, I run air assist. Like this job over here is running air assist on these engraves, and I just poured water in my lap, so that's not, you know. But this is with air assist on the MK2, and the reason that I do it is because, first of all, it keeps the laser healthy. Secondly, I'm still gonna run over this with a little bit of really fine grit sandpaper because there is gonna be a little bit of yellowing around them most of the time. These aren't as bad as some of them are, but I'll still hit it with a little bit of sandpaper and then hit it with the air hose before I go outside and clear coat them. This one right here, I don't know if you noticed it a while ago, my material wasn't quite big enough,
Uh,
so that's wasted.
I just sand the rest of the edges and they won't notice.
I thought about shrinking the design like a half a millimeter, but yeah, my OCD, I will know that it wasn't right, so it's going in the trash. I was just using those little scrap pieces. I had to go get some larger scrap pieces just to make sure they don't happen again.
Steve Ray's asking, what software do you guys use for business sales and bookkeeping?
Pretty sure we use the same software now, don't we?
Yeah, we're both using QuickBooks Online. Um, like here again, you got to factor in there is a cost to it, but how much time and possibly savings will it give you? Time is money, as well as missed invoices, missed tax deductions, things like that. So it does cost about $30 a month for the small business edition that has probably more tools than you need, especially starting out. But it does work pretty well once you get it set up at helping you keep track of everything you need to. So, when you are first starting out, if nothing else, do a search. You can get some pretty good spreadsheets that will help you kind of keep track of expenses and income and maybe some tax categories. It's better than nothing. Nothing worse than getting to the end of the year and just having a stack of receipts and notes and everything else. So,
Yeah.
get in the habit early on of, whether you do it daily, weekly, monthly, have an organization system where you're keeping track of these. QuickBooks makes it easy. You go to the store, it's probably already tracking your mileage, because if you're running on your phone's tracking your movements, and it's going to go, hey, you went from here to here. Was that a business trip? When you get there, if you're using an account that's a business account, it's going to notice the expense. And if you take a picture of your receipt, it'll tie the expense to the cost, and half your work is done for you. Come tax time, it's just going to pull all that stuff together and either make something easy for your tax person, or you can roll it right into it's through Intuit. So what is it, TurboTax? It'll roll right into it as well.
Well, I haven't figured out how to get it to like export into TurboTax, but what it does do, once you get ready at the end of the year to get everything packaged for your taxes, it basically will print you out like a sheet that has income, expenses, like all your deductible stuff, and it's just a list. And all you have to do is go into TurboTax, and when you're putting in your income or whatever, then you go in and put in all the expenses and stuff like that as well. It is definitely handy. I got a buddy of mine that I think it took him 2 or 3 weeks to get his taxes done because he didn't have bookkeeping software, and he's trying to deduct stuff for his business and so forth. And he called me the other day and he's like, dude, what software do you use? Because I am done with, not doing it. And yes, it's $30 a month. But for me, like when I do my stove covers for Clayton's, to generate those invoices and send those, it takes me like a minute to do an invoice because all of my items are already in there, the prices, the taxes is already figured, all that, and you just hit the button and send it to them. So it makes things a lot easier. Sales tax, when you are consolidating and trying to pay your sales tax at the end of the month, which I got to do that this month. All you got to do is go in there and go pay my sales tax, and it pulls up a sheet that shows which jurisdictions you owe how much money to, and then you just go to your state's website, punch that in, and submit. That's another reason I like Etsy. I don't have to fool with Etsy, because if I had to submit sales tax to all 50 states, including Puerto Rico and all that, I would go crazy. So I let Etsy handle all of that. All I do is my local stuff, and all of those sales tax collections go to either the city of Clanton or Chilton County. As I said before, most of my stuff is either I'll meet you in town and hand it to you, or you can come to my house and pick it up. So mostly all of my tax goes through Chilton County and the state of Alabama. Occasionally I have a customer in Clanton that I may set up at, like when I set up at May's and I sell stuff there, then I have to pay taxes into the city and stuff like that. But for the most part, I try to keep everything, pick it up here, or either I'll meet you at the gas station with it. So that way it keeps my sales tax simple.
Mm-hmm.
That, and I don't have to have a business license for all these other little municipalities around here.
Yeah, a lot of things to look into, between state and local municipalities as far as what's required to do business in them. But that's where finding tools. The fees can seem large at first until you see the time they save you, and as long as they're saving you time for what they cost, they're worth it. It's always good to review that, but that's one thing I've found with QuickBooks Online as well as Etsy, and actually they have a way of pulling your Etsy information into QuickBooks, so I don't even have to
I've got mine tied together.
So finding tools that will plug into all your various resources is nice to kind of have a single point that you can work from for the most part. But
yeah, that's the cool thing about Etsy is, like I said, it ties in. So every time you pay sales tax somewhere on an Etsy order, it already knows, and it's already in there. It's already categorized. It's where it needs to be, whole 9 yards. So.
Pat's asking about the S40 Pro has auto air assist. It's great. Is there a way in Lightburn to get different pressures? Not yet. Now, I did hear there is a beta version, I think, of 1.6 that specifically addresses some things for the S1. I have not had time to go and look at it to see what they might be adding. So right now it will, I believe, just turn it on or off, and then you have to manually adjust it from there if you want. But um, we'll see as they've been adding various macros and other things to do some of the other uh, autofocus tools and such. Hopefully, we'll see some added support, but that's kind of up to Lightburn spending the time and Xtool being willing to play nice with them also.
Yeah, with the Lightburn operated machines, you could set up a two-stage air assist, one that would run, pretty much the whole time, and the other one that would only come on when you're cutting. But you would have to do like a split line, have two different pneumatic relays and all that. I've seen it done, and I've thought about doing it, but I've got mine dialed in to where it does it. It does a good job whether I'm cutting or whether I'm engraving. And somebody asked earlier, I saw somebody was asking what pressure did I run. I don't I don't adjust my air assist based on the pressure. I don't care what the pressure is. The way I set mine up is I'll draw a big line all the way across my work area, and I'll sit there and adjust that regulator as it's cutting. And when it gets to where I have a hard time seeing where the cut is because it's so clean and so small, I leave it alone. I lock the regulator, and that's where I run it at. And it's less than 5 psi, I think, on my X40 over here. And same thing for the longer. It's not a lot of air pressure. If you've got the right size hole in the nozzle, which the X40's got a really nice setup on it, it doesn't take a lot of air pressure to have the desired effect. Too much air pressure can actually cause it to stain the material more if you go too high with it. And as far as like for air compressor's sake, the less air pressure you use, the better, because the air compressor doesn't continually run.
Yep.
All right,
Uh,
guys, it's hour and 37. Y'all better keep it coming.
So yeah, Dennis made a comment that started on Etsy and done well, but realized wasn't charging enough to cover cost of material, tools, fees, Etsy, and taxes. And that's a thing that, especially when you get into selling physical goods online, there can be a lot of extra costs that you don't think about with that. And so, but even that, I mean, I see people selling in person that their prices might make up their cost of goods, but then you're looking at self-employment taxes, and those are often 30% of your income. And so you want to factor in all that stuff and make sure you're at the end of the day actually covering your expenses. Shipping, there's the cost of the shipping, there's the cost of the boxes, there's the cost of the labels, there's the cost of the tape, there's the cost of the packing material. There's a lot of costs to shipping goods out. So make sure you're taking those into account as well, because you could get to the end of the year and go, well, I thought I was making money, but I really wasn't. So it's definitely a good point to kind of review all of those extra costs to make sure that whatever you're able to sell it at is actually worth your time and money.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. Especially if it's something that like requires you to be hands on with it a lot. Like these things where I just basically throw a piece of wood in there and let it run. Once I built the file, you know, that's not that hard. The hardest thing I'm going to do with these is touch them up with some sandpaper, blow them off, take them outside, clear coat them, flip them over, take my little stamp, put my Clack Shack logo on the back, clear coat them, and send them packing. So these are actually for reefs.
Very cool.
Good deal. S30 Pro, not a bad machine at all. A buddy of mine's been wanting to get into lasering, and I think I'm going to wind up letting him use the S30 that I have, because I told him it's a good, solid working machine with not a lot of stuff that can tear up. So I think it'd be a good one for especially somebody that's new.
Hmm.
You've got a couple of them, had you? Don't you have like two different S30s?
I have the 5 watt as well as the 20 watt in the Sculpt Fun series. So yeah, both both have been decent machines. I don't remember I think I gave the 5 watt to someone. I do still have the 20 watt hanging around in case I need to troubleshoot someone for something for someone and such. But yeah, they're decent machines, and I've heard too. They used to have more of like this semi flexible but semi rigid PVC hose that was for the air assist, but I hear they went to the more like kind of the rigid rubber that you see in like the Aeters and the Whizmaker and the those machines had a little more. It didn't kink it as easily, so it was still flexible, but it was a
Yeah.
thicker wall, so it didn't kink up. That was the only my only issue with the earlier Sculpt Fun machines.
Yeah. Key. I most of my stuff is custom, so I don't have a lot of inventory just sitting around. Now blanks, I do I do stockpile blanks. I've got a lot of them in my trailer that I use at events, especially like the little small keychains and stuff like that that I do. Uh, I do a good bit of Christmas ornaments, but the one thing that I have learned about Christmas inventory, never put 2023, 2024, 2025 on your Christmas ornaments. Never do that. I did that the first year and I didn't sell all of them and then I had to throw them away the next year. Uh, I've got tubs, and so what doesn't sell this year? Of course, if I've got a bunch of them left over from last year, I'm not going to make a bunch more of those for the following year. But I'm not going to throw those away because sometimes they will sell. But I try to look at because I've got a file that basically has every Christmas ornament that I do in that file, and I'll look and see which ones do I not have any of. It can shift, it can change. One year, this ornament may be hot. The next year, this one may be hot, but a lot of times it'll run pretty consistent from year to year. And so I'll look at what I don't have any of, and that's what I'll go back and just bulk those out, put them in that tub, take them to the event with me. I usually only have, my little Christmas tree set up, and I'll have them hanging on it, and I'll put like 3 or 4 of each on my little Christmas tree. And as I sell them, I kind of write myself a note on my little notepad, and I'll occasionally go to the trailer or either open the little tub if I bring it with me, and just grab a handful of them and put them back on the tree. But you'll start. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. October, if you ain't already got Christmas stuff built and advertised it, you're gonna be late. But I've got tons of Christmas ornaments still left over from last year because I had a few designs that I liked and a few people liked, but not everybody liked. So I had some leftovers. But just don't put 2024 or 2023 or whatever on them. That way you can sell them next year. Because I screwed up and did that one year.
Yeah, if you've got something that you can, like you say, you could create the base and that gets customized. Those are the kind of things that if you've got some time, you got a machine that's not busy while you're doing something else, and you've got maybe some scrap or you've got some stock that you're going to need them. I try to, anytime I've got, you can slide something in, keep that extra machine running, and save you some time in the future is worth it. But you also don't want to get so stocked up on items that you're not going to sell. So you got to have a feeling that it's something that either will have longevity to it or that how much. But yeah, a lot of what I do is either not necessarily seasonal based. I still do a lot of custom part cutting for people for model airplane stuff and other items. So I'm kind of with Clack there is that a lot of my work is kind of more on demand type stuff. But if you are planning on doing those sales, I mean, everybody complains about Christmas being up fall time, but that's when things got to get in the stores for people to start buying them. And if they're not sold out by Thanksgiving, they start going on clearance at that point. You just kind of have to start thinking ahead about those cycles.
Yeah, Dennis, there are a lot of them out there, and that's why I say stick with your local crowds, because if you look online, if I have a lot of the jobs I get, people send me a picture they took off of an Etsy shop, Like they'll screenshot something they see on Etsy and send it to me and go, "Hey, can you make this?" And I'm like, "Well, not exactly like that, but I can give you my twist of it, and it'll look really similar." And so they'll send me the picture, and I'll just look at the picture, figure out how to make it, and I'll design it in Lightburn, make the product, and sell it back to them. And then typically when I do that, then I share pictures of it on my Facebook page, and now all of a sudden, I get 3 or 4, 5, 6 more orders for that same thing. So that helps me because it's hard. It's hard to get like 100% of your money back from a design if you're only doing one. Now, the first order that I had for these bases, they wanted 3 of them. So I was like, okay. So I kind of spread my price out over the 3 as far as designing the file, and it was a relatively easy file. They had the logo, provided the logo and everything. The rest of it was text, except for the little 2 threads that I had to make, which was easy enough. I just found me a baseball SVG file, traced it, used Boolean to trim it to fit my little triangular home base plate, and boom, it was fixed. But since I sold those 3, now I've sold 3 more. Now I've got orders for more of them, and eventually that little design, the time that it took me to design that file, I'll be able to just wash that out because I'll sell enough of them. But don't stick necessarily to cutting boards, and like I said, online, it's hard to compete with online, except for the fact that they're going to call you and go, "Hey, I know it's Friday and I know I need this by Tuesday. I found one on Etsy that I like, but there's no way it's going to be here in time. Can you make it?" That's how I get most of my new customers. I'm going to be honest with you, because they've procrastinated to the point to where Etsy's no longer an option, and they got to find somebody local that can do it. And if they start asking around, or if they get on Facebook and go, "Hey, I'm in search of somebody that can engrave my," we'll just say something I've done 100 times, my clothes hangers for my wife's or my daughter's wedding. I want to engrave bridesmaid, groom, blah, 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 to all the clothes hangers. Is there anybody in town that can do that? And like 20 people on Facebook will be like, "The Clack Shack," at the Clack Shack, start tagging me. That's how I get the majority of the jobs that I get, is just word of mouth. I don't try to compete on Etsy making cutting boards because I can't. I just, I'm not going to go through that much trouble for a cutting board and ship it with free shipping and all that. I'm just not. Oh, I got plenty to keep me busy here local.
Yeah, unless you've got some sort of unique style that no one's done yet, it's it's hard to jump in online and just do what everybody else is doing. So that's where kind of coming up with your thing, and or getting known locally, like Clack said, that's that'll keep you from doing the race to the bottom on price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh, Key Woodcraft. Now, I don't. Now, see, I have a thing that I can do that nobody else around here can do, and that's where I make a lot of my money. Let's say your granddad planted a tree when you were a kid in front of the house that he owned and lived in his entire life, and then a storm comes along and blows that tree over. And you really would like to have a piece of furniture or a table or some type of something to remember granddad by. You can bring me an 8-foot piece of that log, and I can turn it into a piece of furniture for you. That's where the money's at, because taking that log, putting it on the sawmill, cutting it up, drying the lumber, planing it down, making lumber out of it, designing and building something, and then taking and putting I built one. I did one. It was a memorial piece, and it actually had a QR code on it that you could, and it had a image, and you could scan the QR code, and the QR code was a voicemail that the dad had called his son like a week before he passed away, and just basically just to tell him he loved him, and hated that they didn't have more time to spend together, blah blah blah. And it was just this, I mean, like tear jerking voicemail, and it was the last thing that the guy had ever messaged. And I was able to take that file and change it into a QR code that you could scan, and it would play it back on your phone. And nobody else around here does that. So, and it was, I've got logs up there now to where people would be like, "Hey, I'll bring you all these logs if you'll just make me one cutting board out of this thing, from my wife's father that passed away because he planted the tree. That's the kind of stuff that I like doing, because that stuff, it's stuff that people are going to hang on to. They're not going to just throw it away next year when they redecorate. Those are things that family will have that piece for a lifetime. Now, there's a lot of pressure because you don't want to mess something up like that, but I really enjoy doing stuff like that.
Yeah. So for me, it's more of like if it's a highlight, like it's the inlay or it's the accent piece. I generally don't do a lot of primary work with too many exotics. It just it gets expensive, and quite honestly, a lot of people will just they're happy with the maple with the cherry or the walnut contrast, and they think that's great and good enough. And around here, there's plenty of that stuff. It doesn't cost me an arm and a leg, but there are times when having that kind of exotic color, Purple Heart's one of those very unique colored woods that can give a piece that nice accent, but you generally end up paying for it. So.
Well, if I need something to be red, I grab me some mid wax red over there.
It's not quite the same, but yeah. Adrian's asking, what is the best software for us for laser engravers? And I'll be honest, I do a lot of my design work in other software. I don't do a lot of designing in Lightburn. I'll do a lot of primary work in other software and bring it into it. So, but that's because I've been using those softwares back when I was just doing design work and printing stuff out for templates to using it with the CNC. I would design in AutoCAD or SketchUp, and then or even Illustrator, and then bring it into the other software and just set up the file from there. Now I have gotten more used to working in Lightburn for some of the more basic designs and such, but if it's a more integrated piece that has a lot of interlocking parts, I still kind of go back to my 3D modeling tools and such. So kind of just has a little bit more of what your personal process is, and what maybe you've gotten used to over time. So, but I know a lot of people, they like to use just the one piece of software, and so for them that tends to be might be Lightburn and whatnot, or Vintauri for the CNCs.
Yeah, I'm a Lightburn and Vintauri kind of guy myself. Speaking of which, yeah, uh-huh.
I don't think your camera's doing it justice.
It's not. It doesn't. You have to get the light just right.
Yeah.
And that's an exotic blue wood right there. That only grows in Alabama. That's very exotic. That's actually some leftover pieces of a stove cover. And this was that dumpster find that I got the other day, the clear acrylic. And this is a CNC / laser job, because the backdrop and the little frame up underneath here that's white that kind of tries to hide the lights best it can. Yeah, those were laser cut using the same file that I did with the CNC to do this. But yeah, I'm gonna take some pictures of it, because yeah, the camera's not doing it right. But it looks pretty cool. And I did use blue stain on this pine because it's a badge and our uniforms are blue. So I think it's pretty cool. Considering this was made out of all leftover scrap materials, I think it turned out real well. To the point where it's going to be hanging in the patrol room at the PD. Oh, pretty cool.
They're very cool.
Running on a battery pack.
So Dennis is asking, do people contact you by email or do you give your phone number on Facebook? Primarily, I try to keep it through business channels, a business email and such. But if you, if you're just starting out and you want to, or people really hound you for a phone number, you might want to look into Google Voice. A lot of places you can actually just grab a Google phone number off there, and you can kind of set that up through just an app on your smartphone. Doesn't need to be tied to your normal number, and so that'll help keep your personal number separate from, a secondary number that you can use for your business without adding a huge expense to it. Um, so it's something to look into to give that option for you. But I tell people you're going to have an easier time reaching me via email or messaging me on Facebook than trying to call me, because uh, generally, if people are calling me, they're either wrong or it's a loved one that's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, I do mine through Messenger or email. I have people constantly want me to call them, but the problem I have with calling people is I work a full time job and then I basically work full time out here, and I just don't have time. I spend more time sitting and talking to you guys than I do sitting and talking to anybody. Because if you come over here, you're gonna talk to me while I'm working. But yeah, here you go right there. That's how you get your Alabama Blue Wood right there, guys. That is Minwax Navy. And then I went over it with some Minwax. I think I used semi-gloss on that rattle can, clear coat.
Well, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble here.
Uh-oh. Hey, Woodmiser LX25 is what I got. Now, it is not the easiest machine to operate because it ain't got power, nothing. But it makes for some really, really cool wood. My wife's kitchen table, see, you're going to be like me, Key. My wife, when she found out I bought a sawmill, because my buddy actually let it out at lunch one day, she found out I'd ordered a sawmill. After she got over being surprised, I won't call it mad, but after she got over being surprised that I'd ordered a $4,000 sawmill, she said, well, I guess since I had been looking at getting me a kitchen table and most of them were $4,000 or $5,000, I guess if you could use that sawmill to make me a kitchen table, that would kind of make it worth the purchase. And so, guys, I went on a hunt for white oak, and I finally found me a nice 22-inch white oak that had blew down down near the river, and I spent half a day winching that thing up a hill to get it on my trailer, and took it to the mill, milled it. I didn't have a kiln back then, so I built me like a tent in the shack here. When I first boxed the shack in, I built like a tent out of vapor barrier, and I set a dehumidifier over inside the tent and let it run for like a month to dry that wood. And believe it or not, I ended up making a kitchen table. Now, looking at it now, I screwed up so much on that table, but she loves it. I've even asked, hey, can I take that out to the shop and fix some of these little things? And she's like, nope, you're not touching it. But that was one of the reasons I'd even looked at getting a laser, is because underneath that table, and nobody will ever see it, but underneath that table, I got me one of my Sharpies before I coated it and everything, and I got under there and I wrote a bunch of stuff underneath the table, Bible verses and dates and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, this Sharpie's okay, but that'd be really cool if I could do it with a laser. And so that's when I ordered my first laser. So sawmill, building the table led to me getting a laser. So it's all Brandy's fault. If I hadn't built the table, I wouldn't have got a laser. But I've got pictures of that table somewhere. It's pretty neat. I'll have to find that right quick for those of you that have never seen it.
Well, getting the sawmill is one thing, but yeah, then you got to get the trailer to be able to get the logs to the sawmill.
Oh, if you don't have a tractor, don't get a sawmill. You got to have a tractor. Log handling is the biggest. That is the biggest part of sawmilling, is handling the logs, because they will whoop you if you don't have a tractor. I had a 28 horsepower tractor when I first got the sawmill, and now I have a 50 horse, and I'm going to tell you, that is total game changer. I'm not believing I don't even have a picture of her table in here. I sure don't. I got pictures of the coffee tables, but not the kitchen table. I'm going to have to do better on that. Oh well.
Well, we're running up on 2 hours, and I haven't made the pitch for our laser engraving community member map. So, if you haven't seen it before, we do have a Google map that you can drop your pin on by filling out a form, and both the links should be down below each of the videos on our pages. So, what that is just a map that has pin drops from everybody that has volunteered their location and maybe their business name or their personal name, screen name, or no name at all, but just gives us an idea where all our listeners are at. And it's A, really cool to see that, but B, we also will occasionally use it in the future to say, hey, I'm going to such and such event, and I'll be in you know North Carolina for something, and I see there's a number of people. Do you maybe we'll do a small meetup or whatnot. Or you can go on there and click on the names and see maybe who's around you, and if you want, you could reach out to each other and form some small communities there. But either way, it's just kind of a cool thing to see where everybody's at. It's completely optional, and like I say, you don't even need to use your street address. You can just use a city, state, or a landmark near you. As long as Google Maps understands where you're pointing it to, it'll put that pin on there. So feel free to fill that out and fill out our map even further.
I'm trying to find this picture. That's gonna bother me. I can't believe I don't have pictures of that. I know I well. Uh, Here's the coffee tables. Here's the coffee table.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made this guy out of poplar, and I made this guy. And that whitewash was not my idea. That was Brandy's idea. She wanted them whitewashed. So, just
It's a
saying.
it's a farmhouse look.
Yeah. See if I can find something. I know I've got a picture of that table. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure when I was building it, I did like pictures as I built. But that was like some show enough early Clack Shack stuff there. Like that was way back. But I'll try to find that right quick. If anybody's got any questions, I can't see them right now. I'm scrolling.
Yeah, Mark. I actually gotten to know Matt pretty well. He's only about an hour away from me, and I was over to his place early on after he got that sawmill going, and he's had a few sketchy maneuvers with that. But since then, he's really upped his game with his material handling and his whole massive barn he put in there and such. So hopefully, we won't see him launched anytime soon. But anybody else who hasn't checked it out and is curious about sawmilling, Matt Cremona is someone here in up in the Twin Cities area, Minnesota, who built his own pretty massive uh, custom sawmill and even offers plans for it, and has since moved to some bigger acreage and such where he's able to use it still. And he's cut out some pretty massive slabs on it and some interesting content. He's general traditional woodworker as well, so kind of a fun channel, and he's a fun guy. I have fun hanging out with him every chance I get. So
Yeah, I got all that
um,
black walnut up there.
yeah, well, we get a lot of that. Martin, how did the name Vintauri come about? Well, this this goes back to late high school or college, and I had to come up with a username for some system, and I don't remember what it was at the time, but I needed a username, and all the typical ones were taken, and so I was using kind of one of these random name generator things, um, and it was kind of a couple of different uh, play on science fiction kind of stuff, and it wasn't used anywhere, so it became a an easy name for me to use most places because no one else has it, and it's just stuck with me. It's been my, it was basically I just needed a username for something, and it kind of just became my online persona. So there's no meaning behind it. There's nothing crazy other than I just needed a username at one point.
All right, I found it. All right, so I found what I was looking for, and here we go. All right, so there's the table, and it needs to be resanded, and I want to epoxy the top of it, but she won't let me. The little bench that you see, I was actually putting it in there just to let her look at it before I finished it, so the bench doesn't have any finish on it at the time. But yeah, that's the table that I wound up making, and it was a 5 foot table, and so in order to keep the chairs, because there's four of us, I had to pull the trestle legs in a little bit to keep from like cracking your knees. But I made it work. She didn't want an 8 foot. The kitchen area is not big enough for an 8 foot. She didn't want a 7 foot. I think no, she didn't want a 6 foot. So I think I wound up going with a 7 foot. But I built it so that you can get the chairs under it. But yeah, it's pretty neat. It got me out of the doghouse for buying a sawmill. That was what I was after. Was just to get me out of the doghouse, literally. And there's a doghouse I built from sawmill lumber. And this was another project, guys. If you're wanting to get a sawmill, this is another one. These are 1 inch cedar boards that I cut to help my wife with her shoe problem that she has. I went and put the little tracks in with the brackets, and the closet smells like cedar, and it doesn't smell like shoes. She's gonna kill me if she saw that. Oh,
Very cool.
but yeah, that was my very first table build, like kitchen table build, and like I said, it's riddled with problems. But I was working with, I think I had like an 8 inch chop saw trying to chop true 4x4s in half.
Hmm.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, we're our own worst critics, so a lot of people will see the handmade and either they absolutely won't see the imperfections that we all see, or they look past that and go, "Hey, that's the character of you making this for me." And so, good on
Yeah.
you for getting that done for Brandy. So,
Well, I didn't have much choice at the time.
well, I mean, still good on you for getting it done. So, anyway, well, we are at 2 hours 8 minutes. It's past 9 o'clock here. Any last thoughts, comments, or questions?
Anybody? Greg, I'm assuming you do have your point of origin set to the front left on that machine, because I'm not sure what you got going on over there, but there's got to be something. That is just, I'd love to be able to get in that machine and see. But your origin should be front left. If your origin is not front left, then that's going to be the problem. I really wish I knew how to help you fix that. But now, pay no attention to my machine because it's not homing. It's parking. I've got mine set to park back there out of the way after it gets through the job. And I also have a park position that I can move it to take a picture of the work area.
Kyle, the best place to sell online, it's again one of those kind of it depends things, So for me, I actually did a lot of my sales initially when I got my machines. It was for my RC airplane hobby, and so I was selling things through specialty groups, various forums and websites where people that are into model aviation were on, so they had classified areas, and then they had ways you could advertise as well. So if you've got a niche area like that, look for where those groups are. Sometimes they're Facebook groups, sometimes they're local buy sell groups and such like that. If you've got enough of a niche that you can do a little advertising yourself, you can put it on Etsy. But if it's something out there where everybody is doing the same thing, then you're just gonna, it's gonna get watered down. So that's where I try to go to the people that I feel my customers are at. So if you're trying to build up a local business, local things, then Facebook Marketplace is probably one of your best places to start as far as online. But yeah, it's there's a lot of factors to that. I would say the important thing is um, set yourself a budget of the tools you want to use, and at least you know dip your toe into the water with it. Sometimes you're just going to learn a few different ways that don't work and one or two that do work. So
Yeah. Greg, it should be right there. It's got to be this bottom left little dot right here.
yeah, let's make it bigger.
Yeah, right there. Now, make sure you're running absolute coordinates also, and make sure that is checked appropriately. But I don't know what else it could be. If you added the machine back using my profile, this should have already been set. But if you didn't use my profile, then maybe that's the problem. But yeah, that's where your origin setting is. It needs to be front and left, and then make sure you've got this over on absolute coordinates, and that's it. That was it. I hope you just saw that. I hope that was a delayed.
And that was
comment.
under you go to your edit menu and device settings.
Yes. Go to edit, and then scroll down to where you see device settings. It's going to be a little wrench with a cross with a screwdriver, and that's where you set that origin at. Unless something's got messed up, I don't know, and I don't understand why it's only doing it with certain file types. That's weird, but that's the things I would check, and you may just have to reach out to Leo and them and see if maybe there's something else. But unless you swap the board out and maybe plug something up backwards or something, I don't know what else it could be. But anyway, yeah, it's been fun, guys. Sharon, I think a lot of the guys, like they'll post stuff in laser engraving community page from time to time, but I don't know that we have a list, so to speak.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if there's some way we can curate that. Maybe I can create something similar to this map that people could drop their information on if they want to share their websites to out with people. So we'll look into that.
Yeah, that is a possibility. But anyway, guys, I've got this one here going to finish burning here tonight. But other than that, if y'all got no more questions, I guess we're going to let y'all get back to everything, and y'all have a safe week. This coming up week, I think we've decided that we will be having STL Woodworking. Greg, I think Greg is his name, I think. Pretty sure it's Greg. It's either Greg or George. But we're going to have him on, I guess, this coming up Sunday night. So if that's something you're interested in, yes, it is Greg. If that's something you're interested in, go ahead and mark it on your calendars. I'll try to get the thumbnail out as soon as I can, but I'll, give him a heads up, give him a week's notice so he can come up with something maybe to just knock our socks off with project-wise or advice-wise. But as always, we like to kind of, mix it up a little bit. And I know as much as y'all love me and Steve, you could use a break every now and again. But that's about it, guys. I did order some more epoxy toys for epoxy stuff, so look forward to that. I'm going to try to get creative with some cutting boards and actually doing molds. I actually bought me some molding material, like mold making material, and the plan is that I'm going to create a CNC project, take that CNC project, turn it into a mold, and then use that mold to cast acrylic objects. So instead of actually making it with the CNC, I'm going to be making the mold with the CNC, if that makes any sense to you guys. But I think that'll be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to playing with it whenever I get a chance. So that's all I got, Steve.
Sounds good. Yeah, no, I'll be wrapping up the. I got some video editing to do, and then hopefully I'll get into maybe a project that's installed for a little bit, and then that Atom Stack A70 is going to show up. But I'm going to be. I got to start packing. I got airplanes to prep. I got laser stuff to prep, and I'm rapidly running out of time. I got about 10 days before I'm on the road, and my first day on the road is also kind of interesting, mixed in with some some meetings as well. So, but I'm looking forward to it, and so we'll still see everybody online, but I might be a little ragged the next 10 days.
Yeah, Jeffrey, feel free to share. Like I said, even in the laser engraver community page, we don't not want you guys sharing your stuff, but the rules kind of give as much as you take. So if you're one of those folks that's wanting to try to advertise or whatever, that's cool. But also be interactive, answer questions when you can. Share content, pictures, inspirational stuff that you've made, whatever. But we just want it to be a give and take, not just a take. And that's why we try to keep the spammers and the just shameless pluggers out of there. We don't mind you plugging your stuff, but just make sure that you're interacting with other people's stuff as well and being a member of the community. So, but yeah, but that's it, guys. Y'all have a good one, and see y'all next week with STL Woodworking.
Looking forward to it.
See ya.